Welcome to Echo 201, Study Session 6, the Production Function. Introduction. In the previous study session, we mentioned that one of the major functions of the firm is to turn inputs into outputs of commodities. The technological process of performing this important function is called production function. In other words, the production function shows the technological relationship between inputs and outputs. It shows the maximum unit of output to be expected from a given input combination. In this study session, you'll be exposed to the theory of production in economics. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this session, you should be able to define and use correctly all of the key words printed in bold. That is, production function, production processes, points of diminishing average productivity, diminishing returns. The production function. The production function expresses the technological relationship between inputs and outputs. In mathematical notations, a production function can be written as Q is a function of X and Y, where Xi equals variable factors and Yi equals fixed input. In most treatment of production function in economics, two major factors of production are usually presumed to be adequate for expressing production relationships. These two are labor and capital. This would then give a simple production function as Q is a function of K and L, that is capital and labor. Where Q is the ton of output per given time, say a day, L is the total labor hours employed, while K is employed as unit of capital services. You would realize that since output depends on input, in order to increase total output, then input used must also be increased. But the firm cannot vary all its input with the same ease. For instance, while it is easy to increase the number of workers at very short notice, it takes a relatively longer time to install a new production plant. Usually, a commodity may be produced by various methods of production. For example, a unit of commodity X may be produced by the following production process. Labor unit, process A 3, process B 4, process C 5. Capital units 4 3 2. Activities may be presented graphically by the length of lines from the origin to the point determined by the labor and capital inputs. The three processes above are shown in figure 6.1. Method of production A is technically efficient relative to any other method B. If A uses less of at least one factor and no more from the other factor as compared with B, for example, commodity Y can be produced by two methods. Labor for A3 and for B4, capital 4. Method B is technically inefficient as compared with A. The basic theory of production concentrates only on efficient methods. Inefficient methods will not be used by rational entrepreneurs. If process A uses less of some factors and more of some others as compared with any other process B, then A and B cannot be directly compared on the criterion of technical efficiency. For example, the activities below are not directly comparable. Labor and capital Under A we have 3, and under A for capital we have 4. B, under labor we have 2, capital we have 5. Both processes are considered as technically efficient and are included in the production function. Which one of them will be chosen any particular time depends on the prices of factors. The theory of production describes the laws of production. The choice of particular techniques is an economic one based on prices and not a technical one. Production function in the short run. In the theory of firm, in study session 5, we made a distinction between two periods of analysis, the short run and the long run. In the short run, we assume that only few production factors can be varied, while some others are fixed. On the other hand, in the long run, all production factors are variable. Taking the short run period, we may assume for simplicity's sake that in the production function, labor is varied and capital is fixed. This is so, I take that again. This is to say our equation 2 above can be rewritten as quantity is a function of land and capital, where K bar implies the capital is fixed. Thus, in the short run, output can only be increased by increasing the amount of variable input to a fixed input. It is useful at this point to define some important concept. Total product. This is the total amount produced during some period of time by all factors of production employed. If the inputs of all but one factor is held constant, total product will change as more or less of the variable input is used. That is, quantity is a function of lab. Average product. This is merely the total product per unit of the variable, which is labor in the present illustration. AP equals TP over L. Marginal product. Sometimes called incremental product, is the change in total production resulting from the use of one more or less unit of the variable factor, where change in total product stands for the change, and then delta L stands for change in labor input that caused TP to change. The table below gives a hypothetical example. Capital is fixed at 20 units. Quantities of labor 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Total product 6, 14, 26, 37, 46. Average product 6, 7, 8.7, 9.3, 9.2. Marginal product dash 8, 12, 11, and 9. From the above, the table and curve, it is seen that as more of the variable factor is used, average product first rises and then falls. The point where AP reaches a maximum is called the point of diminishing average productivity. At this point also, MP and AP are equal. It can also be observed from the curve that MP reaches its maximum at a lower level of labor input than does AP. The hypothesis of diminishing returns. This is one of the famous hypotheses in economics. It is also sometimes referred to as the law of diminishing returns. This law seeks to explain the behavior of output as a result of applying more or less variable factor to a fixed factor. The law states that if increasing quantities of a variable factor are applied to given fixed factor, the marginal productivity and the average productivity of the variable factor will eventually decrease. There are many practical demonstrations of this law in real life. It is the reason for the present fear about food crises in most countries today. In countries with a high population growth rate, it is feared that the increased number of workers on the fixed land will bring about an inexorable decline in the marginal productivity of each worker and thus a shortage of food output. The only way out of this trap of diminishing food returns is by improving on the technique of production. Summary. In this study session, you learn that production function only expresses relationship between quantities of input and output. In production function, the short run features fixed and variable inputs, while in the long run, all factors of production are variable. You also examine the law of diminishing returns, which states that increasing quantities of a variable factor to a fixed factor of production will after a time lead to diminishing marginal output. This is the end of study session 6. Thanks for listening.